Hi everyone, Shane R. Monroe here. Recently while playing Titanfall, I noticed some drift on my left controller stick and my Titan was walking backwards without me actually using the controller. Now, as you can see here, it's very inconsistent, but a lot of times it'll jump outside the dead zone. Now I could alter the dead zone, but instead I'm going to replace my controller sticks with the GuliKit Electromagnetic joysticks. Stick around. GuliKit. These guys have tons and tons of aftermarket sticks and controllers, and they actually have a set of electromagnetic joystick modules for the Steam Deck. Now, these promise all sorts of good stuff, right? It's no longer mechanical in motion, they're super smooth, long work life, blah, blah, blah. You can all read this. The important thing that we need to note, though, is what type of Steam Deck thumbsticks we have, Type A or Type B. Apparently, if your controller ID starts with MEDA, then you have a Type A thumbstick. So let's take a look at my Steam Deck and make sure that I indeed have the MEDA prefixed controller. And you can see right here is my Steam controller ID, MEDA. All right, so I qualify for the Type A joystick replacements. All right, so let's just skim through this real quick. It looks pretty easy. I'm gonna need a soldering iron, I'm gonna need some tweezers, screwdriver. Okay, I think we can do that. Since I don't have a soldering iron handy anymore, I went ahead and ordered this one for under 10 bucks. It also has a tip that looks like I might be able to scrape with. So yeah, this looks pretty good. Here are these sticks themselves, and they state clearly that these are the MEDA sticks, which is perfect because they don't have the Type B ones on the website. Okay, so I'm just gonna speed through opening this up here. And it's 8 screws. You guys have probably seen this before, 4 long, 4 short. We're just gonna pull all these guys out, crack this thing open, and then we'll actually do the controller replacement. As always, make sure the micro SD card is pulled out. Make sure you've got the proper tools. Make sure you have some sort of a pry tool or pick to get the thing open. There's all sorts of things you want to make sure you have prior to, but we're only interested in replacing the stick, so we're not going to spend a ton of time showing you how to get this guy open. I've done that on my SSD replacement video. Okay, I had to get a different screwdriver. One of the screws was being a little naughty. Okay, so I'm just going to crack this guy open, and once we've got it open, I ended up having to use a pry tool. There we go. So the back is off, we're in good shape. So here are the 2 connections you'll have to remove. These are very, very small, and they use like a ZIF, like a quick release type thing on the ribbons. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at what we're going to be doing here. So using the tweezers, just gently pry up the ZIF connector. Once it's up, you're supposed to be able to grab this blue thing and pull, the blue tab and pull. But unfortunately, I couldn't get a good grip with the tweezers, so I did have to use my hands. Not a big deal, just be sure you're careful. These are very small, tiny connectors. Okay, so now that one's free, and we'll repeat the process on the left controller, or in this case, the right controller, on the left-hand side. Okay, so we'll pull that ribbon cable out, and we're good to go. Each side has 3 screws to remove the entire joystick assembly. And you can use the same screwdriver you used to pull the Steam Deck apart to begin with. These screws are not black, so they're very easy to see in contrast to the rear screws. So you might not have to separate them if it's not necessary. Now you will want to lift it up while you're taking these screws out. Put a little black support guy underneath to try to keep the weight off the joysticks. Okay, so I pulled the joystick out, the whole assembly comes out, and we'll do the same for this side. Having it up on a pedestal like this makes it a lot easier and puts less stress on the joystick while you're taking the screws out. I probably could have sped this up a little bit, but you get to see the back of my hand for a few extra seconds. Isn't that great? Yeah, so this is actually remarkably an easy process. I love the fact that Valve has made this thing incredibly user serviceable. God bless the Valve engineers. Okay, so here we go. Here's the second stick out the door. There we go, a little close-up look here. All right, and we can go ahead and put this to the side. By the way, yes, this is a Samsung box with a black socket piece covering it. I didn't want to scratch up the screen. Okay, so now we just pull the tops off gently, and you can see that the gyro sensor wire is going to need to be taken off. Okay, so now we need to get the soldering iron fired up. But before that, you'll notice that on top of these solder points is some like silicone of some sort that's protecting that. So I thought I could scrape this off. It was recommended by other folks to scrape this plastic coating off of the solder point to avoid sort of a mess. So I tried a bunch of different things. I tried a screwdriver tip. I tried a whole bunch of stuff, and I couldn't get a good hold on it, and I didn't want to destroy anything. So I decided to go ahead and just desolder through the plastic or silicone, and we'll do that in just a minute. I could not get this plastic coating off. Such a pain. Okay, so instead we're just going to unsolder right through it. So basically, by keeping the soldering iron more to the right, I was able to sort of loosen the solder point without actually making a huge globular mess. I'm avoiding the silicone whenever possible, just trying to heat it up enough to get it to release that wire. So that was okay, not a lot of mess. I'm gonna see if I can take some of this nasty stuff off, because there's a little bit of silicone plastique on there, so I took that off as best as I could. All right, so now we need to fix that a little bit, and we can do more with that later, I guess. All right, let's get rid of that one and let's do the next one. I'm using about 350 degrees on the soldering iron. That seems to be hot enough, but not too hot. So you'll have to let it sit there for just a moment. The way that these sticks sort of pop up while you're putting pressure on the pad kind of sucks. They kind of rock like a teeter-totter. So I'm just gonna hold it there for just a little bit longer. I'm always worried. I'm not a soldering genius. So listen, you can make comments about how terrible my soldering is. That's fine. I am no expert in the field, and I'm doing the best that I can with what I got. So I'm trying to have a little bit of pressure pulling on this wire while I'm desoldering. That way, hopefully it'll pop out of that silicone once the solder underneath is heated up. And that worked out great. It literally just slid right out of the plastic. I was very proud of that. All right, so we've got the caps off. Now we're ready to break out the new controllers. And this comes in a very nice box. I gotta admit, this is pretty slick. I have a place to put my old sticks too. Okay, so let's take a look at these guys. There's the solder points right there. It looks like they have a little bit of solder on them already, but you know what? Let's go ahead and put a blob on there anyway, just to make sure that there's enough solder to hold that wire. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and we'll use the same temperature on the iron, and we're just gonna put a little glob of solder. Now I know what you're saying, where's the flux? Where's the flux? You're not putting any listen, you don't really need a flux for this joint. I mean, literally, I just put a little dab of solder. I probably didn't even need to do that, but I did. So I put a little dab of solder on that one, and let's go ahead and reconnect this wire. I hate the fact, see how it teeter-totters? That's a huge pain in the butt. I tried to fix it later with a guitar pick under it, but it didn't really help. So essentially, you're kind of like putting pressure as well as heating, and there, it just popped right on. That was nice and easy, cool. I'd probably recenter it just a little bit, make sure it's a good joint. Again, I am not the soldering expert. I beg of you, please. Constructive criticism in the comments only, thank you. All right, so putting the cap back on, you want to make sure that the wire's wrapped around the same way. Sorry, this got off camera a little bit, but you want to make sure that the wire is wrapped the same way. And you can see I'm doing a full motion and making sure that the wire doesn't get caught or snagged on anything there. And then we'll do the same process here on the next one. So I tried to put a little something underneath it to keep it from teeter-tottering so much, but in the end, it still teeter-tottered a little bit, but it's a little bit better. Okay, so I got a little blob of solder on there. We're just gonna pop this guy right on here. God, I hate that rocking, it's pissing me off. You might wanna try to figure out, get I don't know, an index card or something and fold it a couple of times, just something to keep that thing from wiggling around. Of course, if you have like an actual solder station with, you know, all the trimmings, then you could probably, you know, use that instead and it wouldn't rock all over the place. Okay, let's get that guy on there. I hate soldering. I'd rather do anything but solder. I know this is a really easy soldering job and I'm complaining about it, but yeah, this is from some guy that used to put Wii keys in back in the old days, but I'm an older dude now, so I'd rather spend my time doing something other than other than soldering. Okay, so once again, I'm going to put the cap on, make sure that the wire is wrapped around. Again, I apologize, that is off camera, but you can see the end result. It's wrapped around well, it moves freely. Awesome, this looks really good. All right, the soldering time is over. I can shut this thing off, let it cool off, and we can move on to the replacement. Okay, so once again, I put the pedestal up so that I could put these joysticks on. Unfortunately, the sock being nice and smooth on that pedestal causes the damn deck to constantly slide off of it. I don't know if I've got an angle on my table or what, but it's a real pain. So my first attempt to put these back in was a little bit I didn't want to clip that wire or anything, so I was trying to be extra careful. There are actually guideposts that help you insert the controller assembly. Once you figure that out, or you're smarter than me, then you'll find out it pops in pretty easy and it gets all aligned exactly the way that you want it to do. The wire's not clipped. I'm checking the joystick in that position to make sure it's not scraping or crunching. And now I'm ready to put, see, look at that, it's drifting. I hate that. I thought I fixed the drift, but now I've got drift on my deck. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and put these 3 screws in. And we'll talk a little bit about what we got going on. So once you put these guys in, you have to calibrate them. And the calibration is in 2 parts. One is a physical calibration, where you have to push a little tiny button. Once there's power to the deck, you'll have to push a little button on each of the joysticks, and we're going to get a better look at that in a minute. But you have to push a little button, and that sort of locks in where the calibration is. But it's not just that easy. You also have to compensate for any mechanical offsets, and you're going to see that in a minute too. So obviously we put the ribbon back in and we resecured the ZIF. Be very careful. That ZIF is can't handle the manliness of being, manhandled a lot. So you got to make sure that you're very careful with the ZIF. And of course, this thing just keeps sliding off. It's making me mental. All right, I just want to make sure that that ribbon cable is in properly. The ribbon cable doesn't just sit in there. You have to slide it in just a little bit. I wish I could have got a better view of that. But with some of these ribbons, you just sort of lay it down and close the ZIF on top of it. This actually inserts maybe 1/8 of an inch into the ZIF socket. So make sure that it's all the way in. That's what I was doing over there on the left side. Okay, so now I've got a little confidence. I popped it right in there. I used the little guide plastic. I checked it, we're good. Second one's going a lot faster, as you can see. And I was going to go ahead and put the ribbon in right now, but I decided not to. I thought I would wait. All right, so now we're back to just putting the screws in. Magnetic screwdriver, if you don't have one, get it. It helps. And again, having this thing offset from the table where the joysticks aren't crushed against your surface, highly recommended. Maybe not using the sock solution that I've got going on here, but you know, maybe just have something a little bit not so soft, but not so soft, I guess. As you can see, I'm fighting constantly keeping it on the pedestal. And again, you don't have to over torque these things. I mean, you know, you're not assembling a rocket. We're just putting this, we're just securing this thing down to the board. So let's, you know, barely hand tight, snug, I guess is the official term. There's snug and hand tight. Hand tight requires a little more pressure. We're not breaking out a torque wrench here, of course, but okay, let's get this cable back in, the ribbon cable. And again, make sure that it actually slides in just a little bit. Here we go. It looks good. Now, you have to calibrate it. Let's feel one more time. Yeah, these feel great. They feel great. There's no scraping or sliding sounds. It feels perfect. There's your little tiny button. That's the calibration button. And that whole thing's not the button. The button is that little tiny black speck in the middle. Now, you have to be able to push that button while you're looking at the screen and adjusting one of the joysticks. Yeah, okay. So this is actually maybe the harder part of the job. So I'm trying to find something to push that button in, and I don't want to use anything metal, but I did end up landing on using a little jeweler's screwdriver. Again, I would make sure you have like maybe an old Nintendo stylus from the DS or something with a nice small tip that's also plastic. I have to also plug this thing in. They recommend that you discharge the deck to below 10%. I let mine go to like 5%. So now that I've powered on, I'm going to click in each one of these buttons the first time for the initial calibration. I did power it on, if you didn't see that. So you power it on, then click those two little buttons, and now we've done that's our initial hardware calibration. Now we need to see if any of them are off, if we need to fix either one of them. Okay, so this doesn't work with the touchscreen. You actually have to, this is ridiculous. You can't actually select anything. There's some sort of a bug in the UI here. So really you have to use the controllers to do your selecting. Otherwise it just doesn't work. What a pain in the butt, right? So essentially you have to change from one side to the other and then hit Y. Such a pain. Okay, so you can see on my right stick, it is off center a little bit. I really would rather have it as dead center as possible, right? So in order to fix this, you're supposed to slightly overcompensate the alignment and then push the button while you're doing that. So that might be a two-man job. Get somebody behind you to push the button while you're trying to recalibrate. But look at the left side, that was awesome, except for I just lost it. So let's see if we can do this with the controller set a little bit easier this time. Okay, so let's take a look at the left-hand side. That was the one that I had problems with. That's dialed in pretty, that's a little tiny bit off, but you know what? I think I'm okay with it. I would say that that is within the limits of tolerance. I'm not gonna adjust this one. I think this one looks pretty good. You'll also notice that it's a square pattern now instead of a circular pattern. That's the electromagnetic construction. And believe me, it doesn't hurt it at all. Okay, so this one I'm gonna monkey with a little bit. I'm gonna try to center this in. Plus I thought you'd like to see what the process looked like. So what I'm trying to do here that you can't really see is I'm trying to get my finger to where that button is and maybe trying to press it in with my finger. So what you have to do is overcompensate with the controller a little bit. So in other words, whatever way that it's pointing, you point just a little bit more. However much it's off center, you go that direction that much further and then push the button. And I'm telling you, you can't feel that little button sticking out. It's ridiculous. I left all of this in. I was gonna clip it out, speed it up, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted you guys to understand how difficult this part of the equation was. So it's still off a little bit. So I'm gonna try again with my finger back there to try to press it while I'm offsetting it. I can't get the button press. It's making me mental. At this point, I was thinking I was just going to keep that offset. See, I'm trying to, once again, kind of put my finger on there. Fingers on the button, offset a little bit, and try to push it. And it's not working. It is such a pain to do this. So eventually, I grabbed my little plastic cover for my soldering gun, my soldering iron, and tried to put that on there. Unfortunately, it's got a little extra tip on it, and it makes it harder to click in. Absolutely ridiculous. So what do you do with this? You either leave it or you get a second person. I didn't have anybody else available, so I'm trying with my little pry tool, trying to get my pry tool on there. That's not working. It's absolutely ridiculous. So finally I start to get sort of a, oh, there we go. I did it, but unfortunately it overcompensated. So now I'm trying to compensate from there, but it's balancing this thing with the joystick, trying to hit that little button. Well, I'm back to where I was. Crap. Okay, well, we're gonna sit here and monkey with it for just a little bit longer. Well, is that better? Nope, that's actually not better. That maybe just in the other direction. Okay, let's try to get this dialed in. Boy, oh boy. It's really hard. Man, I just cannot get this thing. Oh, wait a minute, there we go. Hey, that looks pretty good. Maybe I'm still sitting here playing with it. I'm a glutton for punishment, I know. I get it close and then I ruin it. But I really wanted to see if I could get that thing dead center and what that would take to do it. What it takes is a second person. Let's be honest. It takes a second person. Still fighting it. Yep, that's me trying to struggle underneath. About to give you a different angle for a minute while you're seeing me what I'm trying to do here. If you want to zoom me ahead a little bit, I would. Oh, wait, we're getting really close now. I have a feeling there's a distinct art form in this calibration. And when I say art form, it's a matter of knowing how much to push and being able to hit that button at the same time. And so I'm trying to alter my angle a little bit, trying to do anything that I can in order to get that thing dialed in right. And again, I know this is running a little long, this segment, but I really wanted you to understand how much work that I put in trying to get this thing perfectly centered and aligned and calibrated. It's a real struggle. There's a real struggle here. And maybe there's a distinctive tool that you could use to make that work better. But at some point, I finally take the best one that I can and go with that. I know you guys are probably tired of seeing the calibration thing, but misery loves company. And believe me, doing this was misery. Trying to get that stupid button to click while you're holding the thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's as good as it's gonna get. I'm sold. How long did that take? A lot. Oh, good Lord. Okay, so yeah, I think we're in good shape. Let's snap this guy back together. Let's get the screws in. And we'll get rid of my socks box. And we'll just use the case and we'll put these screws back in. And we can do the final step of the calibration, which is the command line from the desktop mode that does the final piece of calibration. Now, this final piece of calibration is not shown in the GuliKit tutorial. So it's a good thing you're still watching. So we're gonna go ahead and boot the deck back up, and we're gonna go to desktop mode. And we're going to run this thumbstick calibration. Now, as you can see, obviously, because it's an internal set of joysticks, it doesn't look any different. Your deck still looks exactly like it came out of the factory, obviously with a bunch of fingerprint smudge marks all over the screen. But listen, I can't wipe it down with a diaper like they do Kit on Knight Rider between scenes, you know? Because every time I touch this thing, it pulls fingerprints. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to our desktop, and we'll jump into the console. You do not need pseudo access for this, so that's kind of cool. I apologize, my lighting is making my camera go a little bonkers, so it's a little bit blurry. I'll try to walk you through the textual pieces of it. I'll just let this thing settle for just a moment, make sure that we're good. And we will go to the console. And it would probably be easier to do this on a dock. Thumbstick underscore CAL, thumbstick underscore CAL. That's what you're looking to do. And here, the hard part here is it shuts down Steam, so guess what happens? You lose a lot of your stuff. So now you're supposed to press A or hit enter. Well, how do you do that when Steam's not up? Bonkers, right? Yeah, so what do you do with this? I think eventually I just let it sit here for a minute and then I finally was able to press A. So something was waiting. Now it says to rotate both thumbstick 360 degrees through full extent twice. So I went forwards, backwards, sideways, slantways, long ways, just to make sure that everything was tidied up, and that's it. You're done. Calibration is now complete. So now we've done the hardware calibration, we've done the software calibration. Now we're ready to go back in one last time. Now that we've done all the calibration, we're going to go back to gaming mode. We're going to bring up the controller testing harness, and we're going to make absolutely sure before we call this a day that this is all done and done. Okay, let's take a look again, not Bluetooth. There you go. Okay, so look at that, nice and tight. I'm loving it. What about the right one? That was our big pain. All right, and hey, that looks pretty good too. I mean, it's a little tiny bit off, but listen, I'm not going back in there. Okay, and of course the proof is in the pudding. I played about 2.5 hours of Overwatch. This was right towards the end of my gameplay. I feel very comfortable. These controllers kick butt. I recommend them. I love them. It's been a great experience overall, and I'm really, really happy. Please, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell. You guys know what to do. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'm Shane R. Monroe, as always. We'll see you next time. Take care.